Hey there, creepy peeps. Welcome to my channel if you're new here, and welcome back if you're returning. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the movies that very much disturbed me, stuck with me long after I'd seen it, and just all around scarred me for life and still affect me today. So this was actually a video idea that was brought to my attention from one of my lovely patrons and just all around awesome person, Mel. So thank you, Mel, for the amazing idea. Speaking of patrons, though, I'd like to thank all of my creepy patron peeps for supporting my channel. Thank you guys so much. If you want to find out the perks to being a creepy patron peep, you can follow that link in the description. So first one is going to be a quick one because I feel like most of you are probably super familiar with it. It's Cannibal Holocaust from 1980. It follows a rescue mission into the Amazon rainforest where a professor stumbles across a lost film shot by a missing documentary crew. So like I said, I feel like most of you guys are probably familiar with this movie, at least in some capacity, whether you've seen it or you just know it by name, which is definitely the case for me before I saw the movie for the first time, because this movie is on every single most disturbing horror movie list on the internet, which for good reason, because it involves rape, animal abuse, extreme violence, and gore. The first time I saw it actually was not that long ago. It was for our very first Does This Offend You episode, and I have not watched it since. I don't typically have any interest in seeking out super disturbing horror movies. I usually kind of just accidentally stumble upon them, not knowing that they're known for being disturbing. So there are tons of essays and articles about how influential this movie is, and I'm not disputing that, just I didn't feel like a better horror fan for having seen this at all. Next is another movie that finds its way onto every single most disturbing horror movie list on the internet, and that is Martyrs, specifically from 2008, the original French film, not the god-awful American remake. This movie follows a young woman's quest for revenge against the people who kidnapped and tormented her as a child, which in turn leads her and her friend, who is also a victim of child abuse, on a terrifying journey into a living hell of depravity, which is probably the most accurate description of this movie, the living hell of depravity. This and one other movie that's on this list I'll talk about in a little bit take the cake, at least for me personally, for being just all around depressing. Like, yes, this movie is disturbing. Yes, it made me cringe and made me terrified, but overall, the feeling I get from watching this movie is just sad and depressed. Honestly, I haven't seen the movie in a good minute, but I can't remember a single good thing that happens in that movie. And I just remember the first time I watched it, like, I was sad for a few days after watching this movie. Like, it almost just like, it makes you lose all hope for humanity, and I can say that without feeling like that's an exaggeration. Next on my list is The Blair Witch Project. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the plot. 3 student filmmakers go on a camping trip to make a documentary, and they are never seen again. So I'm sure, like anybody else out there who saw this movie at a young, impressionable age, I thought this movie was so real for an embarrassingly long time. The acting just seems so authentic, and the found footage aspect really adds to that. It's the ending, though, that was burnt into my retinas. It's so simple, and then it ends so abruptly, again adding to the authentic feel. But it is so effective. Like, I get goosebumps just thinking about the ending. It's something that finds its way back into my mind whenever I'm near any like dense section of trees at night at all. I'm instantly thinking of that movie. So this next one I'm going to mention I have talked about at length before, and I think it's one that I think a good number of you are probably familiar with, and that is The Strangers. This is a home invasion movie about a couple who are being terrorized by 3 masked strangers over the course of a night. So quickly, for anyone who hasn't heard the spiel, the very first time I saw this movie, I was watching the house. So I had the house to myself for a weekend. I was a teenager. I was maybe like 17 at the time when I saw this movie, I think. And I thought I was hot shit and I wasn't gonna get scared. So I watched this movie alone in the house at night. I will never regret anything more for the rest of my life. It was so simple and so effective, and it leaves just enough to the imagination to where you could very easily put yourself in the shoes of the victim and just start imagining this happening to you. That that super effective line. Our main characters are asking why the killers are doing this, and they just say, because you were home. That is the single most terrifying line. Like, I got a chill down my spine just repeating it. What really got me was the ending, though. I mean, I'm talking about the ending right now, but it's the fact that the end of the movie, it's broad daylight. That's usually the point in the movie that the evil is defeated, our survivors escape. But no, they save the worst for the daytime just to drive home the fact that you're not safe anywhere at any time. Keyboard warriors, get ready, because I'm about to talk about a remake. Specifically the Last House on the Left remake. Yep, I'm going to talk about this one over the original, which is very disturbing, but I have a very specific story that kind of adds to the disturbing nature of this movie. This one follows almost exactly like the original. A girl and her friend are brutally attacked, and their assailants unknowingly take refuge in the home of one of the victims. So this was the first rape revenge movie I ever saw, and I will forever vividly remember it because I got the movie at Movie Stop, and it's the unrated extended edition. I think like the main sell, I don't know if this is a selling point for some people, of the extended edition is the rape scene is extended for reasons. I was also in high school when I saw this, so I invited a whole bunch of friends over for a movie night. I think there were about like 9 or 10 of us. We're all watching this horrible extended rape scene in just stunned silence. All of us were completely quiet during this part because we were all just so disturbed. And of course, at that exact moment, my dad comes home from work, walks into the living room to see what we're watching. And when I tell you my soul left my body, so I was traumatized on so many levels watching that. Moving on, we have our other just all around sad movie, and that is Eden Lake. The movie follows a couple on a road trip who encounter a gang of violent teenagers. That's probably the simplest explanation because that's pretty much all that happens. It's just a lot of violence. So yeah, on one hand, the majority of the violence is all because one character accidentally kills one of the teenagers' dog, which is traumatizing to see in and of itself. And for a moment, you're kind of on the teen side because, like, well, his dog was killed. I might go into a murderous rage if somebody killed my dog in front of me also. But then things get extremely violent and scary, and then it just refuses to let up. Like many of the movies on this list so far, the ending is the real gut punch. I won't spoil what happens exactly just in case anybody hasn't seen this and wants to, but it's one of those conclusions that kind of just like rips any hope you had away from you right at the end. Hopefully that was a vague and confusing enough explanation for those of you that haven't seen it. For those of you that have, you know what I'm talking about. Speaking of gut punch endings, we have to talk about The Mist. This is a Stephen King adaptation that follows a group of people stranded in a grocery store after a mysterious and deadly mist takes over their town. So I've been trying to keep specifics like away from the movies I'm talking about and keep it vague just in case anybody hasn't seen any of these films. But I have to spoil this one because the ending is the whole reason why it's on the list. This fucking movie makes you sit through all of this human depravity, lack of compassion, just, your run-of-the-mill like society breaking down, people turning on each other sort of thing, which I just find super depressing because I feel like it's not that far off from reality, at least in the United States. But it's the end. It's like, so you go through all of that and then it's the end that really gets you, which if you've seen it, you know what happens. They're escaping in an SUV, and then of course they run out of gas, but they're still surrounded by the mist. So thinking they have nowhere else to go, they decide to take their own lives. Of course, they just have to destroy you even more. So after David kills everybody in the car, he's gonna let one of the monsters get him. And as soon as he does that, through the mist comes a bunch of military vehicles carrying survivors, some of them who were in the grocery store. So literally all they had to do was just wait it out and they could have all been alive. And that's how the movie ends. I remember sneaking into this movie when it came out, because I was definitely not old enough to go see an R-rated movie by myself at this time. I don't think I've ever been to a movie since where the audience has been so mad at the end of a movie. Like, what a slap in the face that ending was. So next up is Paranormal Activity, which I've also talked about before at length. It's a found footage movie that follows a young couple being haunted by something in their home. So if you've been around the channel for a while, you've probably heard the story a few times. It comes up every so often when I talk about this movie. I was, again, in high school when I saw this. I dragged my best friend to go see this movie with me, and scared myself and her so bad that she has not let me show her a horror movie since. So like The Strangers and like the Blair Witch Project, it's so simple and effective. Lift just enough to your imagination. Like, if you can't tell, I very much prefer, with these found footage movies that involve like ghosts, demons, monsters, that I prefer not to see it. Home invasion and haunted house movies scare me enough already as a homebody. I don't like anything that suggests my house isn't safe, and yet these are the movies I seek out. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. But I remember finding this one super authentic at the time when I first saw it. It wasn't until a few days later when I saw the two main characters on an interview on TV that the spell was broken. So for this next one, it's really just one part that stuck with me, and that is from the Babadook, which is about a single mother and her son who are being haunted by an entity from the storybook. So when I was watching this movie for the first time, I was watching this movie with headphones in, and the first time the Babadook speaks was absolutely horrifying. I had to stop and take a break from the movie for a little bit before I could get back into it. It was just the added fact that it was right in my ears, that it just is, I can hear it. It's just, ee! And finally, one of the very first movies that scared the crap out of me, and it still freaks me out to this day, is The Birds. I don't think I need to summarize this one. There are some people and the birds start violently attacking them. That's the gist of it. I have no clue how young I was when I first saw this movie. I can tell you it was too young, because that scene where you see the guy with his eyes pecked out, like where it just like zooms into his face, gave me nightmares. I have been wary of birds ever since. And now that I think about it, this is probably gotta be top 3 of movies that has stuck with me for so long. Like, I still get freaked out whenever I watch the movie. Every time I see a large gathering of birds hanging out on anything, I think of this movie. So it's just one that, it's very oddly specific. So, cause I feel like maybe not everyone is as scared of this movie as I am, but man, it's all because of that one scene too, and it just really freaked me out. So there you have it. Those are like the main group of movies that have scarred me for life, that I still think about pretty regularly, that still stick with me long after I've seen it. And they're low-key the reason I don't have any interest in seeing films like Salo, Antichrist, a Serbian film. Don't have any interest in seeking out these super disturbing movies. So let me know in the comment section down below, what are some of the most disturbing movies you've ever seen, some of the most disturbing scenes you've ever seen that have stuck with you, so I can make sure to avoid those movies. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I will see you soon with another new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.